Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another Mortgage Coach coaching call every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock Pacific. We're here because we're dedicated to your personal and your professional success. We're always looking for ways to give back and drive value in today's market. So do want to give you a reminder, next Monday, before the next coaching call, I will be interviewing Mitch Kiter, the country's top compliance attorney. People are saying, hey, why are we interviewing a compliance attorney on a sales call? Well, because there are so many legislative changes, compliance changes. I'm just a big believer in doing things right. And I'm a big believer that whenever there's massive change taking place in an industry, there's massive opportunity to have a competitive advantage. So we've got new GFE and RESPA disclosures coming out, 2015. We've got a lot of buzz on MSAs and realtor relationships. So we will be interviewing Mitch. Don't miss that next Monday at 10 o'clock Pacific time. So today's call is all about change. How do we make change stick? So to set up that call, a couple questions I want you guys to ask yourself. Have you ever seen a better way to do something but not started doing it? You know that there's a better way to conduct a certain part of your sales process, whether it's scripting, whether it's technology, but you're still not doing it. Has that ever happened? And again, for all you managers on the call, you're on this call because you've invested in Mortgage Coach for your sales force, and we know that when it comes to new technology like Mortgage Coach, not everybody is doing it consistently, or the way that they should, or even the way that they want to do it. So we've got a great leader today, Anthony Iannarino. I always want to throw that I in there. Anthony, how you doing, my friend?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So I think this is the third time you've been on a Mortgage Coach coaching call. Is that about right?
I think it's like fourth or fifth time.
Yeah, it's
been a regular.
You are a regular, and Anthony is one of the top sales consultants in the country. Speaks nationwide. You are a guest author in how many different magazines?
3 or 4. Success, Selling Power, Think Sales, 3 right now.
So I actually met Anthony because when it comes to being a great sales leader at Mortgage Coach, I read his blog, I pay attention to everything he does, and I just think what you bring to the table is fantastic leadership for our industry. I am looking forward to figuring out how to get you on the Sales Mastery stage this year. So Todd Duncan, if you're listening to this, big shout out for Anthony. We need to get him at Sales Mastery in 2015. So Anthony, before I bring you in and have you share slides and start really driving your teaching, I want to do a big shout out for Ryan Kiefer, a great branch manager. And Anthony, feel free to add some color to anything I'm going to share before I bring you in formally. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Good. So Ryan is in Cincinnati, average loan amounts under $200,000, manages 12 loan officers. He's a branch manager for Prime. And I wanted to do a big shout out for him because he's a great leader. When it comes to driving change, it comes from the top. So when you see cultural change with a company, it comes from the CEO. When you see cultural change with a sales force, CEO and mortgage industry head of production. But when you see it from a branch level, it's only as good as the branch leader. So this is just a great example of where Ryan took Mortgage Coach, which he uses to drive value with his borrowers and his realtors, and he created a video because rates recently dipped and it created a refi opportunity, and he forwarded out this email to 12 loan officers. He also CC'd 8 other managers like himself, and what's cool about this is within about 24, 48 hours, this video has been watched 91 times. Again, remember, this is his internal loan officers and other managers. So just a great example of leadership where he's taken a current market strategy, an opportunity that's been uncovered in the market today, and led by example, the same tool that he wants his sales force to use as they win more business and deliver more value to their customers, he's using to train them, to remind them, and to lead by example. So I actually recorded about a 15-minute training on how Anthony did this, really took it strategic, and got into details this morning. That will be available in the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel by the end of the day. But he just got great feedback from his co-managers. So these are some email responses that other managers, they just said, this is incredible, great job, I'm sharing it. And then he took it to even another level, where not only did he do it, day one, where he delivered how to use Mortgage Coach to do a same payment refi. Next day, he said, hey, how to use Mortgage Coach to do a same rate refi. And then this morning, and he's already had 11 people or more watch it, he's like, in his market, because the loan amounts are so small, he made a great case for, doesn't always make sense to do a 0-point refi, and he brought more leadership. So I just want to, as we talk about how to drive change, I want to make the point that it starts at the top. And if you're a Mortgage Coach member and you're on this call, we all have the same vision and goal. We want loan officers to stop being transactional and just delivering a fee worksheet, and we want them to start using the modern tools of Mortgage Coach to deliver a modern mortgage experience, which is a link in an email. If a borrower clicks on it from a mobile device, they get a mobile experience. If a realtor clicks on it, they get a better experience. And at the end of the day, everybody on this call, we want you to go from being app takers to value creators with Mortgage Coach. So shout out. By the way, I just want to see if you raised your hand. Oh, Ryan Kiefer, there you are, my man. Hey, Ryan, by the way, I unmuted you. I saw that you raised your hands. Anything you want to add to the color or put some color behind what I just shared for the Mortgage Coach for your peers?
Well, I think you did a pretty good job of covering it, Dave. Had a good time recording this morning, behind the strategy, the why and the how, and I'm just always happy to give back. I learn a lot on these calls weekly, and always happy to share ideas when we come up with something here locally that works well for us. So appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, well, hey, really appreciate your leadership, and then also just being willing to share it. A lot of loan officers or managers might consider that, hey, I'm going to keep that down, don't want to share it. So not only are you doing a great job leading your team, but then you're sharing it with the broader audience. Really valuable, really appreciated by the Mortgage Coach community. Hey, Anthony, before I bring you in formally, anything you want to add to that or anything you want to say or ask Ryan?
It's interesting to look at Ryan's commitment to leading by example. And it's one thing from my world I'll just share. When I go and I give a workshop or a keynote to an organization of salespeople, I always know how big the commitment to change really is by what their leaders do. And one of two things happens. Either I show up to speak and to work with that team, and every leader is in the room. And I've had rooms, last week, for example, I had the chairman of the board, the CEO and president sitting there, the VPs, all the sales leaders in the same room. I know for certain change is going to stick because it's being led and leadership's engaged. And then other organizations where I'll show up, the sales management team will literally leave the room and go have an off-site meeting while I'm training their people. And I know that being divorced from that outcome, they're demonstrating to their people, this isn't important. If it was important, we would be here, but we have things that are more important. You go through the training and we'll do something different. So Ryan, I'll just, you're here, so I'll commend you while you're listening to me talk about you, which is uncomfortable, right? But, a leader, he's doing what he expects his people to do. He's leading by example, and they're going to believe this is good and right and true and real because they're watching Ryan do it. And if you're not leading by example, you are leading by example. Let me just leave it there. You're leading by example either way. If you're doing it, you're leading by example. But if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing and what you're preaching, you're leading by example too, and people are going to follow what they see you do, not what they hear you say.
Love that. Great segue. And then, hey, Ryan, I'm going to leave you unmuted unless you create some feedback because, you and I had a great call, 30 minutes ago, and you might be able to add some color from the trenches as Anthony unpacks how to make change stick. So feel free to jump in, Ryan, anytime throughout the call, add some color or ask some questions of Anthony. All right, so like I said at the beginning of the call as I teed this up, Anthony is a sales trainer, sales leader for a lot of large companies, not necessarily within the mortgage industry, which to me I think is a fantastic thing to get someone who is teaching people how to sell SaaS software, who's teaching people how to sell, I don't know, Anthony, real quick, just kind of share some of the different businesses that you jump into and you drive sales leadership in.
it's all over the map. Right now I've got clients that sell abrasive and Australian abrasive to companies that blast gas and oil tanks, which is a booming business. I've got clients that sell veterinary diagnostic equipment and services. I've got one client right now in the mortgage industry. We'll have to have another conversation about that offline. I've got a consulting firm with a lot of people who are still behaving transactionally, insurance companies. It's just really all over the map. What I bring is a view of sales, and it's interesting because I get to figure out what real principles are and what true north looks like. When you get to work with different organizations, you find out what the principles really are and how they apply across different industries.
Yeah, well, I think it's also particularly important you bring a lot of value on the B2B sale. So everybody who's on this call, you know, we have really two sales hats. One, when we're meeting with a family to deliver mortgage advice, to have them work with us, to help them with their financing. And then we have another strategic partner conversation with realtors, financial planners, companies. And I personally think everything that you have is relevant to both sales, but it's particularly relevant to winning the B2B sale. So, you know, let's center this around whatever it is. Great salespeople, they have consistent ways in which they drive a great sales process. Mortgage Coach is a piece of that sales process in the mortgage industry. So, Anthony, I'm going to let you share your desktop, and then have you walk us through what you consider to be some strategies and ideas that will help managers be better leaders to their sales force.
Let's make sure you got my screen.
I see
Are we
it.
there?
We're there.
Awesome. Yeah, how did we get here? I mean, Dave, usually when you reach out to me, it's because I prompted you with a newsletter. And normally what happens for us to put these together is I send you something and you respond to me. And that's how we got here with a newsletter that I sent out about change and about leadership particularly. So you've got to make change stick, and it's difficult to do. And I'll just start by setting up how I started thinking about this. I tend to think that all salespeople start with mindset, and then they get skill set, and then they get toolkit. And a lot of times we think we'll give them the toolkit. We'll give them, well, let's use a Mortgage Coach. Mortgage Coach is a great toolkit. But without the mindset about why we're using it, how we're using it, making that shift from transactional app taker to value creator, none of the tools work and none of the skills work. You need all three of these pieces together. But I met with a leader when I sent you that email, and the leader was considering hiring me to do workshops for his team. And in the middle of the conversation, he said, who do you do the best work for? And what he meant was what industry. He was thinking, what verticals do you work in where you really get a good outcome? And it doesn't matter the vertical to me. And I told him very honestly, look, it doesn't matter what my experience is in a vertical. What matters is that I understand transformation, that I understand sales, and that I understand how to help you improve what you're doing in your effectiveness in sales and sales management. And his next question was, you're going to do these workshops, and you're going to spend 2 days with us. How do we make sure for the next year that we're actually able to produce the results and the outcomes based on that workshop? And I said, that's a different question altogether, because if you're going to make change stick, you have to lead it. You have to be engaged. Your management team has to be engaged, and you've got to follow a process that allows you to actually succeed with that transformation. I can be here to help you, but you're going to need to do it. I can't do it from the outside for you. And he was unhappy with my answer, and I get it, because what I never tell anybody there's an easy answer for difficult questions. And what he's going to be up against, like all of us are up against, is he's going to have people that decide, I'm going to wait out the transformation. You told me we need to change, but you showed it to me one time and you walked away, so I'm going to wait. For a lot of organizations that I see in sales, they show up and they say, here's the new shiny object. We're all excited about it, and we're excited about it for about 60 days, and then we fall off. And the sales force learns, hey, next year there's a new shiny object. There's no real truth. We don't have to execute against this like it's principle-based and it's disciplined and we're going to do it forever, because they keep changing it all the time. So we have these challenges as human beings and as leaders. How do we ensure that we're going to produce the outcomes that we need? It's nice that we're going to have this call today, but I would challenge you listening to this. How are you going to hold yourself accountable? How are you going to make sure that you make change the first thing on your agenda, that you're going to get new results? How are you going to identify those results and then make sure that you have a plan to get there? And I'm going to speak first to leaders and then managers and then individuals. So I'll walk you through a couple ideas. It starts with leadership because you're responsible for the mindset. You're responsible for that first critical piece before we ever get the skill set, before we ever get the toolkits, for saying, here's the vision, here's who we are, here's why we are, here's why we do the things we do the way we do, here's how we're going to make a difference in the world. And those are the questions that the people that you have the pleasure and the honor to lead want you to answer for them. Their job has to be about more than transacting. It has to provide some meaning if you want to be a great leader. And if you want to be a great leader, you've got to make the case for why change. That's the first and most important question you have to ask. If you're leading a change initiative, you have to explain what's the burning platform? What happens if we don't change? What happens to our business? What happens to us as individuals? What's the compelling event that's going to guide this change? And we think of it as a burning platform. If we don't change, all of this is going to end. And literally, I call this age that we're in now the disruptive age, because there's never been a time where change has been more necessary, where the economic environment, the cultural environment, the technological environment, the political environment is changing so rapidly that if you are not keeping up, you're literally falling behind and putting everything at risk. This is the leader's first job, is to say, why are we changing? They have to provide the mindset, and they have to answer this question: who will I become? If I follow you down this path and I start taking these new actions, what does that mean about me? Who am I going to be on the other end of this transformation that you're asking me to take? And I'll pause here and bring you in, Dave.
Well, I mean, I think you've set the stage well. I mean, as a mortgage coach in the community that we represent, everybody on this call believes in advice makes a difference. They want to be more than transactional loan officers. You know, everybody believes that having a technology advantage makes a difference. You know, being able to deliver educational marketing on mobile with video, they believe that that makes a difference. So, you know, the challenge I have is most of the people that are mortgage coaches, they share those beliefs. You know, they have that why. I believe in being a teacher, not a rate quoter. I believe in leveraging technology, especially to your point. There's never been a time where, you know, mobile technology is more ubiquitous. Never been a time where leveraging video as a salesperson is more of a competitive differentiator. So they have that why, they know it. That's why they're listening to this video or they're watching on this call, but they're still not taking action. So I guess before I throw it back to you, Anthony, you know, Ryan, you've been successful, you know, changing that mindset. And then as a leader, you've also worked with loan officers. Some have been more successful than others. Anything from the trenches that you want to bring into this before Anthony continues?
Well, no, I think it's great points. You know, as you and I have talked before, Dave, in this day and age, you know, it's much more important to be all about advice versus price these days. You know, given the changes the industry has gone through the last few years, it's a much more level playing field. Consumers have gotten smarter, you know, so a lot of times, you know, they come at you, you know, hey, what's your rate, what's your closing cost, and they think that's it, and that's what it's all about. So, you know, Mortgage Coach definitely, you know, changes the playing field in that regard and allows us, you know, to educate the clients to where they realize it's not always about just, you know, the price, of course.
Right. So I guess, Anthony, I look forward to hearing where you take it from here. But I mean, I think the why, I don't want to say it's understood, but I think everybody's got the why, but then taking it and disciplining themselves into action is always the challenge. And I also think sometimes people just don't get clear enough around their why. But I'll look forward to see where you take this.
I'm going to say this, and you know it's going to hurt when I say it, because that's what I do. If you know something and you don't take action on what you know, it's the same as not knowing. So when you tell me, yes, I believe this, yes, I believe this is who I have to become, yes, I believe this is the value that I need to deliver, and then you're unwilling to act on that, it's exactly the same as not believing it. So if you believe it and you answer that question and say, yes, I believe this is who I have to become, I have to move from an app taker, transactional salesperson to a value creator, every action that you have to take from that point forward has to be around, I'm moving towards value creator and away from transactional. To say you believe it means nothing. If you believe it, you act on it. And so I'm going to challenge you to think about this. If you really want to make change stick and you really believe it, your actions have to become aligned with that belief system, or you never produce the results you're capable of. I'm going to zip into the second part a leader has to answer is why now? Why is this important right now? And I think, Dave, you've set the stage nicely here. When you think about how does my customer expect the transaction with you, how does my customer expect that transaction to go? Do they expect it to be complicated? Do they expect it to be cumbersome? Do they expect it to be driven by paper? Or do they expect a different experience? Do they expect to have video? Do they expect to have a spreadsheet that shows them the different options and choices on a mobile format that they can look at while they're out? What is their expectation? And the why now for you, I think, around this particular idea, and it's not just this idea, there's a whole bunch of ideas that would make you a value creator, not just mortgage coach, but thinking about mortgage coach and what you're trying to do. If you're not delivering that, what are you delivering? And if you're not delivering it and your competitors are delivering a better experience, you're putting your business at risk. And this is a burning platform. The question that we have to answer as leaders is why change, why now, and why this? And if you can't answer those questions, this would be the thing for you to sit down and say, why are we changing? Why are we doing it now? And where are we going? Why is it important for you to become something more than an app taker? Why is it important for you to be that? And you can answer that question. I don't have to answer it for you, but you know the answer. You won't have a long experience in the industry if that's all that you can do. And you certainly aren't going to have the kind of success that you can have if that's all you're going to do. And it's not just true for you, it's true in every industry that I work in. I'm going to work us into managers. First, my favorite quote of all time. If you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And that's the place where all of us live right now. If you don't like changing, you are going to become obsolete and irrelevant very quickly. Management. If you're a branch manager like Ryan, your job is to draw a line in the sand. Your job is to say, that was what we did in the past. This is who we are and what we do now. You're responsible for showing where that line is. From today forward, we no longer do this way. And the reason that that's important is because managers are responsible for the execution of the strategy. And it doesn't matter what the strategy is. If it's not executed, you can't succeed. And when we look at businesses that fail, and when we look at turnarounds, when we look at people that come in and like the Prophet and people like that, most of the time, businesses have a great strategy. They know what they need to do to create value. They know what their product or their service or their solution provides in the way of benefits and outcomes for their client. The bigger challenge that they have in producing those results is the day-to-day execution. And we'll point back at Mortgage Coach since Dave opened the door to this, but if you have the tool and you're not executing on it, then you don't have the strategy. The strategy is worthless. One of my favorite stories about strategy and execution is from the CEO of Southwest Airlines, Herb Keheller. And Herb said, I could leave our strategy binder on a seat in the airplane, and any one of my competitors could pick it up and walk out with that, and they would never be a threat to us because they're not going to execute this strategy like we do. They don't believe it. They're not going to execute it. Without the execution, there's no competition at all. And that's true for each of us, but it's the manager's role to do what Ryan did, and that's to lead by example, to say, look, this was the past. That's how we operated. This is now. This is who we are now, and we're going to execute this way in every interaction and every day because it's what's going to define us and differentiate us in this market. It's what's going to allow us to create a competitive advantage for some time where we're going to be able to produce better results than our competitors. We're going to be able to create more value, and we're going to be able to capture more of that value, which we can then invest in growing our own business. And I'll pause here at the end of this little segment and pass it back over to you.
Well, I mean, I think it's just a great review for every manager, every leader as we come into the end of the year. Now is a great time to plan for next year. Now is a great time to candidly and honestly review. Think of the initiatives that whether it's Mortgage Coach, other technology, other change initiatives that you rolled out last year. Score yourself. How did you rate on a scale of 1 to 10? And what are we going to do different, in 2015? So in 2015, a new good faith, a new GFE is coming to town. And one of the keys in that is that loan officers are going to be required to show the total cost of a loan over 5 years. That's going to be a radical shift for average loan officers. Mortgage Coach loan officers, that's going to further differentiate you, because that's how we have delivered value and how we have helped borrowers make informed decisions for over a decade. So I just recommend everybody, take today's call, and hopefully you're taking notes while you're going through this with Anthony, and hopefully you're using this to plan, how are we going to help change and drive the initiatives that we want for 2015 and beyond. And then Anthony, before I pass it back to you, since we have an in the trenches, leader, Ryan, anything you want to add to that, or any questions you have for Anthony so far? So Anthony, back to you. Ryan didn't answer quick enough.
What's interesting, I'm fortunate enough to get to work with a lot of different sales leaders, but I had one say, what's the new thing? What's the next big thing? I've got this budget. What should I be doing that's new and exciting and that's going to energize my team? And I had to tell him, what would be new for you would be executing on anything, because you're constantly looking for the next thing and the new thing. And the results are only going to be produced when you execute on the fundamental blocking and tackling. And he accepted that answer because he's mature as a business person. But for most of us, this is true. For most of us, we know what we need to do. We know what we're supposed to be doing, but it's difficult. The fundamental blocking and tackling is the real challenge for us. So we mostly fail due to execution. So I would think for each one of us personally in our personal life, we know how to eat right. We know how to exercise. We know to balance a checkbook. All these things are just simple, fundamental execution that produce terrific and tremendous results at the end of it. When it comes to business, we execute for our customers as often as we can, but we often don't execute for ourselves. So as you think about this, think about, how do I execute? Think about what has to change for me. The status quo will always have more support and will always feel more comfortable than change. But you're going to need management support, you're going to need leadership support, and you're going to need to make a commitment to yourself to say, I'm never going to slip back into the comfort of the status quo. I'm going to create something new, and I'm going to produce new results, and it's going to be around execution. I'm trying to move forward here. The leader produces the mindset, sets the strategy, but it's the manager's role to provide the skill sets and the toolkits. So you've got to make sure that your people know how to use the tools that you've provided them, and that they have the skills to produce the outcome. It's your job to ensure that there's a break from the past and that new activities are being taken consistently every day. That is how change happens. If you're an individual producer, now we'll get to you. Dream big, set goals, take action. You need designed activities. For change to take root, you need to be trained, you need to be developed, you need to be coached, but most of all, you need a set of activities that help you make that change real. And that means you say, from now on, this is the way I deliver this to my client. And you need to make sure that from every interaction from that point forward, you're taking action around that. So you need designed activities. We're on a Mortgage Coach call. So you think about that particular tool and the skill that you need to do that. Do you do it on every single application, or do you do it on some applications? The best results are going to be produced when you have the training, when you've been developed, you have the mindset, you have the skill set, you have the toolkit, and then you have a plan for designed activities. This is a process-oriented idea. So it's not sporadically we're going to use this tool or that tool, or sporadically we're going to take this activity. It becomes the way we do business. It becomes who we are. And for you, it becomes who you are individually. This is the value that I bring in every interaction. And when you have those series of actions that you can take that produce it, you're going to produce better results. And this is what's going to take you from what Dave suggested earlier. I know I need to do this, but I'm not. So you outline, what activities do I take? You build the process. The phone call comes in, what's the first thing I do? What's the second thing I do? And you build that process. If you're a manager, you help build that process so your people have a checklist that they can follow that says these are the very best practices. These are the very best activities to take. And if you want to go back to the archives of mortgage coach calls, we did one on playbooks, and we talked about these activities need to be embedded in that playbook so people have the language choices, so they know how to have the conversations that they need to have with their customers and clients so that we can ensure that we get that outcome. But it's all about the individual activity, and each of us has to make a choice in that moment of truth. I've got the call. I know what I need to do. What do I do? Do I go back to doing it the way that's comfortable and old and probably paper-based, or do I decide to take a new action now and to deliver it this way? I'm passing it over to you, Dave.
I think you're rocking it out. I'm going to let you keep on rolling on this one and bring me on the next one.
It goes new beliefs, new behaviors, and then new results. And it always happens in that order. So as a leader, as somebody who works with sales organizations, I want you to believe deeply that you need to change. I want you to believe deeply that you have to have new behaviors. Because if you do those two things, if you adopt new beliefs, if you shed some old beliefs like this is good enough or this is the way we've always done it here, and you decide to try on new beliefs like, look, we need to deliver a higher level of value or we lose our competitive advantage. Or you try on a new belief that says, I'm now what I call a level 4 value creator. I'm a strategic partner, and my job is to create so much value in this interaction that this person would never call anybody but me when they have something in my space. Then you get the new results, and it never happens any other way. It always starts with your beliefs, and if you believe it strongly enough, then you start taking the new action, and then the new actions produce those new results. I think I have one more slide or a couple more. Oh, this is a little bit more technical, but I felt like I had to share it with you here to talk about change. The reason that so many people in business don't make the business changes that they need is they don't understand their model. And there's a great little book by Tracy and Warsama called The Discipline of Market Leaders. And I was lucky enough to go to Harvard Business School and take strategy from Cynthia Montgomery, who is Michael Porter's protege. And Porter is really the guy that invented strategy in the United States in the modern form with this 5 forces. But it's really boring to read. It's dry. And as smart as Porter is, it'll kill you. Or if you have insomnia, it will cure you to read it. But this book gives you all that same strategy in just 180 pages or something like that. It's worth picking up. If you don't want to pick it up, I'll teach it to you here quickly. There's 3 business models. There's 3 strategies that you can choose essentially. And one says, I have the best price. And if I have the best price, I got to get rid of variety. I've got to just make sure that I crush everybody in my vendor and partner pool to get their margins as low as possible so I can pass on some margin to you. This is Walmart. This is what Walmart does. And I don't know the players in your space, but you have somebody who competes this way. They'll do no-cost loans, whatever the case may be. They'll do anything they can to try to take price out of the equation. And this is one model that you can choose. But to operate this model, you have to be completely transactional. You can't spend time with people. You've got to try to lower every single cost you have. And I'm not a fan of Walmart because when you walk in, it's like a big dirty warehouse where you can get like a 50-gallon drum of ketchup or something. And it's not interesting to me. But that's their model. The next model you can choose is to be the product leader. I'm talking to you on my iPhone 6 Plus. And the day that this phone came out, Samsung ran an ad congratulating Apple on building the same phone that they released in 2012 when they released the Galaxy Note 3. They said, congratulations, you've created something we created 2 versions back. This is the idea that you have to cannibalize your success with breakthroughs. And one of my favorite quotes when Steve Jobs was alive, when he came out with the iPhone, all of the pundits in the technology world came to him and said, you've only ever created one product with mass appeal, and that one product was the iPod. And now you're putting out an iPhone that does exactly what the iPod does, and you're cannibalizing your success. And he said, listen, if I don't cannibalize my success, somebody else is going to, which is why the only reason I'm carrying the iPhone 6 Plus today is because they haven't come out with the iPhone 7. And you know that there's somebody already working on that product because they're going to jump to an even better and better technology. So this leaves us with one choice, and this is probably your choice. And that choice is customer intimacy, which means you've got to have the best total solution. You've got to solve your client's broader problems. Your real core processes are client acquisition, which is selling, and solution development. And the way that you do that is through being a product expert and customizing the service that you offer so that it fits that individual. As much as we sometimes want to play and think that price is where we need to compete, if that's not your business model, it's absolutely the wrong decision for you to make. And it means you need to focus on creating greater value. And you would love to be the product leader, but in most of your spaces, it's tough to do that. We all have the same products, and everybody's pretty good. Even Apple, as good as they are, Samsung's good too. Mercedes, great car, so is BMW. It's a very difficult space to fight. But in the service business, we're mostly in customer intimacy, which means you have to operate that model. And that model means I need to develop solutions, and I have to work to solve my clients' broader problems. What are those problems? They don't understand the math around what they're doing. They don't understand the options when it comes to loans. They don't understand why they're allowed to have X amount of money and not more. There's all these questions that they have, and they want somebody to be an expert for them, but somebody has to step up. So if you're transactional, you're trying to play down here in operational excellence, then your real job is to play over here where value is created. The right side, this right column, is where the greatest value is created in B2B and in B2C. This is what your client needs from you. They're not an industry expert. You can give them a great experience, or you can give them a pretty good experience, or you can give them a very transactional experience that doesn't differentiate you or define you in any way. And that's the way to be commoditized, and that's the way to be irrelevant. I'm going to pass it back to you, Dave, if you want to riff on this.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, you know, this just epitomizes the mortgage industry. We absolutely have the operational excellence call center loan officers, and I don't really put the big banks, you know, which do 50 to 60% of the production. You know, we've got the product leaders, which again is big banks, but everybody on this call, you make it or break it on your ability in the biz dev. Whether you're meeting with a realtor and you're trying to convince them that you should work with me and refer your business to me. And let's face it, everybody in the business today has pretty good product. Can execute and manufacture a loan pretty darn well. So at the end of the day, your ability to be uniquely valuable is what you live and die on. Your success. You know, we all have 40 hours in a work week. Of course, some people put in 60, some people put in 80, some people put in 30, but we got the same hours. It's what you do with those hours and how you deliver the wow at the point of sale and how you deliver value. So every time I've interviewed a superstar loan officer, they are likable and they are a value creator. How they create value varies, but the best of the best, they've got unique ways in which they deliver value. Well, guys, and again, I don't want to overly pound the drum, but I really do hope that this call is a catalyst for all you managers on this call, that as we enter 2015 with changing legislation that gives you an even greater competitive advantage, I want everybody to lead by example. I want everybody to be a better solution provider to their clients. And there is no better tool, no better technology to automate how you deliver advice, how you create unique value than Mortgage Coach. You know, I mean, yes, I drink a lot of our Kool-Aid, but it's a fact. When you look at our mobile technology and how we help loan officers deliver mortgage options with video on mobile, there is no better tool to power that, to automate that. So, you know, your challenge on this call is execution. You know, how effectively can you get at getting your sales force, or if you're an individual loan officer, getting yourself to do this each and every time you're up to bat, so that you crush the competition. The product leaders, their product doesn't look as good as yours because you asked better questions and you delivered a more tailored teaching to the customer. You know, if you're competing with the operational excellence guys, there's no competition because you care. You connected emotionally with the borrower. So great slide, great teaching. And you know, I think when it comes to Mortgage Coach, when it comes to really powering this strategy, there's no technology, there's no tool that's more valuable. Now, if you're on this call and you want to be a price leader, you want to be a product leader, you're not playing the customer intimacy game, we probably still add value, but we are not the catalyst. You know, we are not the single source of value for you from a tools perspective. So obviously I had a lot to say on that one, Anthony.
I've got one client in the mortgage business, and he is a Mortgage Coach customer. He could be on this call, I have no idea, and I won't mention his name. But he didn't know that I had done these calls before when he called me. And I said, oh, do you know Dave Savage? And he goes, yeah, of course. And we started talking about Mortgage Coach, and he went back and listened to the 3 or 4 webinars that we'd done. And the second time I called him, he was deeply entrenched in level 4 value creation because we talked about it on one call. And he came with a plan to move from level 2 to level 4 because he's thinking, so I'm telling you this because I want you to know there are people out there thinking about this customer intimacy. They're thinking about how do I move to a place where the value that I create is so great, I drive a wedge between me and all of my competitors. And that's the primary question that he's answering and we're working through is, how do I drive this wedge? The wedge is so big and I drive it so deep that there's only one person, that I'm a category of one. And I'll be honest with you, he's got about 8 or 9 action items that combined, I believe, are going to make a tremendous difference in what he does and how he positions himself. But this is what we're up against. We're up against, some people are saying, wait a second, I got to try to find a way to lower costs. I've got to try to find a way to win with product so that either I can get price out of the equation or the product's so good it can carry the whole deal for me. But I want you to know that there's another category of people who are saying the right way to go is to figure out how I can create massive value and position myself so that I can capture more of that market share and capture more of that value myself. And these are the people that are winning. These are the people that are doing tremendous work in every industry. It's because they're moving in the right direction. You can win a race to the bottom and try to be the lowest price, but there's not a great prize when you win that race. The prize is typically you're not in business for very long, especially when there's any kind of blip in the economy. I want to say just one last thing about this. This is the last slide for this section, but you can have a business model that is what I call level 2, which is a nice experience, which means sometimes you send a thank you card, or sometimes you use Mortgage Coach, or sometimes you spend time really understanding the client's need. Always is a different business model. Always is level 4. Always means that I'm always differentiating, defining myself by becoming the value creator that creates a strategic advantage from you. And by doing that, I shift the discussion from price to cost. And price, it's a funny question to think about, but I've asked buyers this before to have them sit and struggle with it, but I've asked them, what's the difference between price and cost? And I've had some of them say, what is the difference? And then I explain to them, this is the price of what you're paying, but the cost could be completely different. If you want to get to the discussion where what you charge is no longer relevant, you create so much value that no one ever objects to you capturing part of the value that you're creating. There's only one way to go, and that's to make it always. Your strategy has to always be a value creator, to always be focused on the customer's outcomes, to always give them the very best experience, to always have more knowledge and more insight than anybody else they could be speaking with. And I know I'm setting the bar high, so that's who we have to be, all of us. That's who I have to be. That's who Dave has to be. That's who you have to be. Dave does these webinars because he's trying to create more value, and he's consistent about it. Why? Because he's always trying to create more value. That's who he thinks he has to be to serve his community, and he's right. I'm going to say one last thing on this, and that is resources. Because if you're a leader or a manager, you've got to provide resources. You've got to give people meetings where you talk about the execution, where they get greater skills. You've got to have tools. So I've mentioned this before, in one of the webinars we've done in the past, you can go back and learn about how do I create a playbook so people know how to do these things. You can have webinars. For a lot of the clients that I work with, we've created learning management systems where we've recorded videos where we talk about every interaction in the sales process. We review great language. We talk about how to create value at every single stage of the buyer's journey, so that when a salesperson comes in and they need an answer, there's some place that they can go and they can find that answer and they can take action on it. So it could be meetings, webinars, LMS, but really when you think about how do we make change stick, you've got to give people the resources. And everybody has a plan. This is my favorite quote from the great American philosopher Mike Tyson, who said everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And that's pretty much true for any plan that we have. It sounds good on paper, but then we get punched in the face by reality, and we've got to think, okay, now what do I do to reset? People need a place to go where they can say, I need to think this through. I need to find resources. I need to find different ideas. And we need to have that place where they can go as well and find those answers. And if you're an individual contributor, you need to seek out these resources. You need to continually look for and find answers. And it's your job to be responsible for your own personal and professional development. So you go out and you listen to calls like this. If you're on a call like this, I applaud you, because so many of your competitors won't spend their time here. They're worried about doing the transactions of today instead of growing big enough that they can even handle more transactions and be more effective value creators in the future. You need to spend time here because this is where you're going to grow and this is where you're going to make a greater contribution. That's my last slide, Dave.
Well, I mean, fantastic. I mean, we still have a few minutes, so I want to drill home a few points for everybody on this call. There's Anthony's email address, his blog. I cannot emphasize enough how good his writing is, how good his content is. While I subscribe to a lot of blogs when it comes to selling and how to be a value creator as a salesperson, there's no one's content that is better on a more consistent level. Anthony, what are some of the other magazines that you are in, just so everybody knows where to keep an eye out for you?
Success Magazine, Selling Power Magazine, which now comes on the cloud, and Think Sales, which is a sales journal, and it's one of the last printed sales magazines available, and they do a terrific job.
Great. And then everybody, you can text value at 44144. So I am going to
sign up to the newsletter.
That'll get you signed up. So a couple things I want to drill home. You know, it really resonated when you talked about, you know, learning management systems. One of our partners, the Knowledge Coop, this is actually a view into our learning management system within Mortgage Coach. But more and more, I'm seeing mortgage companies, whether it's teams, branches, putting together their learning management to power and drive their best practices. Anyways, whatever your strategy is, I'm a big fan of the Knowledge Coop. If you are a manager or leader on this and you want to find out more about it, you can email me at dave@mortgagecoach. But it's so critical and important that while this call is valuable, it's going to inspire you into action. You got to have a system for how you're driving training to your sales force throughout the year. So also, I just can't pound home enough how important it is that you get really strategic about what is your business model. While everybody in this business has to drive cost out of the business as much as they can, you know, are you competing with the Costco loan companies? Probably not. And if you're competing with big banks in your local market and other referral-based loan officers, you know, how are you really different? How are you unique and different? You know, I had a conversation with a senior executive recently, and we were, you know, trying to drive value for Mortgage Coach, and they were talking about, you know, how are they going to invest for 2015, and they were talking about, you know, just different ways that they could do it, whether it was their website, whether it was automating, you know, different types of sales and marketing messages. And I recommend everybody ask yourself this. When you look at how you're automating and how you're investing, when I look at a lot of how the mortgage industry automates and invests, I put it under a couple categories. You know, and I mean this with no disrespect, but blah, blah, it's the same as so many other loan officers. It's not unique. It's not different. It's not creating value. It's noise. It's just the kind of marketing and the kind of touch points that are truly noise from a borrower's perspective. And then in our business, there's a whole lot of narcissism where it's just like me, me, me. Look how great I am. Look what we did. We've got the lowest this, the lowest that, the best this. And buyers, you know, it's just noise to them. So, you know, again, yes, I bleed mortgage coach, but I bleed it because we are really powering a personal experience for borrowers. You ask a borrower questions, and then you deliver something amazing to them that's tailored to them. You know, it's and it is a unique competitive advantage because most loan officers don't do this. Most loan officers are transactional. So when you really, you know, you're on this call, so you've already invested in Mortgage Coach, but that's not enough for me. My goal is to get you to get the maximum value to where it's not just something that's winning you extra loans. It's a competitive, differentiated experience, and it's differentiating your organization. So, you know, make sure you go the extra level. Well, Anthony had a lot of great quotes. You know, this is always my favorite. Sometimes versus always. Sometimes is nice. I wordsmithed your quote a little bit, but I hope you're okay with that. I gave you credit for it. Always is a differentiating, defining, and value-creating strategic advantage. It really is. So if you're on this call, today's the day. Let's stop doing this. Let's start making sure that every buyer that we touch gets, you know, a differentiated mortgage quote. Let's make sure that every realtor that gives us a referral, they understand how you're unique and different, and they're even clicking on it from their own mobile device. You've taught them and trained them that, you know what, I'm not an app taker. Every time you refer someone to me, I'm an extension of your sales process, and I'm delivering a differentiated, unique, strategic value to you. Even in open houses, you know, average loan officers provide you with PDFs and paper to put out at your open house. Me, I'm going to give you a link that you can put on your mobile device and differentiate in your open house. You know, here's a great loan officer, Jeremy Forcier in NorCal, is doing 20 loans a month. And this is from last weekend or the weekend before, where this is a realtor's mobile device where he sent mortgage options. Just a better way to do things, folks. Also, I'm not going to quit talking about it until we, you know, get everybody on this call who's downloaded the Rate Watch app. Make sure that you get this downloaded. Make sure you have it on your mobile device, and make sure you just learn that when you're whether it's a Starbucks, whether it's a coffee, someone asks you, hey, what do you do? You're in the loan business. And let's face it, everybody in the loan business, people are always asking us, hey, how are interest rates? What are rates? Well, now you've got a unique and different way of having that conversation. You pull out your mobile device and you talk to them about what's happening in the market, and you don't just tell them, but you show them. So, Ryan, I don't know if you're still on the call. Are you still here, my friend?
I'm still here.
Good. So we've got a few more minutes before we wrap this up. Anything that you want to add color around, or any questions for Anthony before I kind of go into a few homework assignments and we start to wrap up the call?
Well, no, I really enjoyed his presentation and that particular slide on the moving over to the last column of what was it, customer or client intimacy. That's you know, definitely our goal on a daily basis. And it's funny you mentioned Steve Jobs, because you know, one of the things that he was big on was coming up with products that customers didn't even know they wanted yet. You know, was sort of his big thing. So for us in the mortgage industry, the analogy or the parallel there is, of course, you know, clients coming in and thinking they know what's best and that they want that 0.30-year fix with lowest closing cost, and that might be the right solution in some cases, but not always. So it's like, you know, going to a doctor and asking them to write you a prescription without being diagnosed first. And if we do that, that's committing malpractice. So you have to ask better questions, find out what the client's needs really are, figure out how to integrate their mortgage into their overall financial plan, and then recommend a solution accordingly. And that's how you offer advice versus price.
Love it. So folks, homework assignment, write down your mortgage coach why. Why are you on this call? Why do you pay mortgage coach money? If you're a senior executive, why do you invest? What is it? And then it's just action. For anybody who's on this call and you're not delivering a mortgage coach report to every client, if you just create 20 mortgage coach experiences like ASAP, not over the next quarter, but over the next week, over the next month, if you download and use the RateWatch app today, if you share your success. I mean, the reason Ryan's on this call is because he forwarded me a success story, how he was delivering value as a branch leader, and he shared that. And I can guarantee you Prime is going to benefit from that. Ryan's branch is going to benefit from that, and a lot of you on this call. So, share your success with your team. So Anthony, I've got a few more, closing comments, but I'll give you a chance to jump in as we make what you've shared today actionable. Any other thoughts that you want to bring to the table?
No, I'll just close with the one thing, and that is I'll go back to the quote that you built into the deck there at the end. There's a difference between sometimes and always, and you have to make it your business model. So if you want to make change stick, don't think about the individual transactions. This is my model. This is who I am. This is how we operate. And that's the biggest difference for you, because it's going to make the biggest difference for your client.
Beautiful. So folks, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock, we're here. Thursday is training. So getting into the weeds. You want to know how to create some of the videos that Ryan created, come to the Thursday training call. You want to know how to create an FHA versus conventional, come. You want to know how to do one of those 3 strategies, the payment refi, same payment refi, same rate refi, come to the Thursday call. And if you're a beginner and you haven't even created a mortgage coach report until you've got to 20, come to our Friday call. Want to remind everybody, come to the Mitch Kiter compliance event this Monday. Don't miss that. Sign up for today. This call is recorded, like all of them. It will be in our YouTube channel, along with the scripts that I talked about. Want to remind everybody that you can watch all of these videos from your mobile device. So, learn how to use that so that you can listen to the calls via mobile. Anthony, I can't thank you enough. As always, you delivered massive value to the mortgage coach community. I am closing with that quote. Sometimes versus always. Sometimes is nice. Always is different. Not everybody can do it all the time. It is redefining, and it's a value creator. And by the way, it'll just plain make this business more fun and make you more confident in what you do. So if you could vote as you jump out of the call, let us know what you thought of today's call on a scale of good to great. Also, if you're new to Mortgage Coach and you don't know, if you're a guest on this call and you want to get a demo of Mortgage Coach and you want to learn more about it, click I want a demo to learn more. So Anthony, you get the last word. We still have a minute. Any last words before we wrap it up?
No, thank you so much for having me. I look forward to doing it again soon.
Good. All right, everybody. So as you leave, let us know on a scale of average, good to great. And if you're new and you want a demo and you want to learn more about what we do, click on I'd like a demo to learn more. Take care, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see some of you on Monday, and we'll hopefully see all of you on Tuesday. Bye now. Thanks, Ryan, for jumping in, brother.